Welcome to my channel, Fog and Fern. I'm doing another video for Fern Friday. If it wasn't obvious by the luscious ferns that I have right here. Today I'm doing the Maidenhair fern, and I've had a couple of people interested in knowing a bit more about the Maidenhair fern and how I take care of mine. I have two types of Maidenhair ferns. They are thriving at the moment. So I think I'm doing something right. And in this video, I'm just going to go over the basic features, the conditions that I grow in this fern in, and I'm going to talk about propagation, fertilizing, and of course design, because I really love talking about design. Plants make your house look good. Like talking about that. Yeah. So before I get going, where's your cuppa? I hope you're enjoying a nice cuppa of something. I don't know, I think it's just kind of funny. I like kind of talking about that in videos now. Again, it just really feels cool to just be chatting and talking and connecting. Like I said, it's so good for your brain. It's so good for your soul to sit and have a conversation about something you're passionate about with somebody who's equally as passionate as you. Guaranteed, I am. So I'm not feeling, as we say in Newfoundland, I'm not feeling A1 today. I'm kind of under the weather. I'm pretty sure it's not COVID, so nobody panic. But yeah, I'm a little bit drained, and so I just wanted to do a chill video. And I'm drinking a chill drink. So this is a hot chocolate. That's it. I'm not drinking any herbal tea right now. I just want something to cozy and make me feel good. If you hold on, I can show you the bag of chocolate that I drink. It's really good. So here is the hot chocolate that I drink. My friend told me about it recently. I bought it off Amazon, so I have to eat gluten and dairy free because I am 100% lactose intolerant and I have celiac. I'm doubly blessed, obviously. So anyway, but it's a fantastic hot chocolate. It's got a nice little bit of kick to it, you know. Oh, it's really good. Okay, why don't we get started? So take your cuppa, enjoy it, and let's get going. So I took this one from down in my bathroom. It's been up there for, well, both of these have been up in my bathroom. It's been up there for, I think it's 2020. I don't know. I'm so bad with knowing when I get my plants. So here it is. And it looks nice and full right now on the one side, but trust me, it's not on the other. Okay? That's because I have this plant facing this way, right? In an east facing window. Okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself talking about the conditions. So I'm just going to rewind and talk about the features, because I really want to get into that. I'm a little linear in my thinking sometimes, and I like to do A plus B plus C equals D. So sometimes. So anyway, Maidenhair. So if you look closely, it has these wiry black stems. Isn't that nice? It's so cool. It has, to me, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why I absolutely love the Maidenhair fern, it's a plant of contrast, which I'll get into a bit later. But briefly, what I mean by that is it has really like dark, hard, wiry, tough stems, but the leaves are just so lace-like and delicate. Like if you blow the air the wrong way on this plant, the leaves will crisp up and die. Trust me, it's happened, and it continues to happen. So I'll get into a little bit more about what I mean by contrast and how that can play into design. But just to get back to the main features about Maidenhair, so it is a genus of plants, of ferns, called Adiatum. Adiatum? I will put that word on the screen. So there's 200 varieties, apparently, of this type of fern. They grow indoors and outdoors, but a very interesting feature about this plant, again, is that it is tough as nails in nature. You will find this plant growing outside in crevices of rocks and the fissures of rocks, between rocks, like on rocks, like because it's chasing the moisture. It thrives in moisture. And so I think anatum, if however you say it, is Greek for unwedded. So another cool feature about this plant and its relationship to water is that its leaves they repel. Like the foliage repels water in nature. How cool is that? So, you know, and even if you're watering your maidenhair fern inside, you'll notice that the water doesn't stick to the leaves. It doesn't really stay there. It doesn't accumulate on the leaves, which I think is pretty cool. So tough as a gad, we'd say, as tough as a gad, we'd say in Newfoundland, but outdoors, but not indoors. It's actually quite a tough plant, as a lot of people have discovered, to keep alive and thriving indoors. But it can be done. It's not going to be a perfect plant. Mine is certainly not a perfect plant, but it can be done given the right condition. A couple of more features is that this plant its size can be about 1 foot tall, 1 to 2 feet tall, and 1 to 2 feet wide. I think my plant is actually like about over a foot wide and probably a foot tall, I'd say. But that's what apparently it gets to at maturity. And this plant also is non-toxic. I'm getting the vibe that most ferns are non-toxic, but I don't know that for sure. I'm sure there's some fern out there that's toxic and I don't know about it, so I don't want to misspeak. But if anybody knows about that, let me know. Okay, so that's enough about features. Conditions. Chugga, 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 chugga. I love doing this with ferns. Chugga, 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 chugga. Okay, so conditions. You want to keep this in well, first of all, I'll just tell you where I have it. I have it up in my warm, humid bathroom, right above my bathtub. If you've watched any of my videos, you might have caught that, a picture of where this lives in my house, and of course I'll insert a picture. In case this is your first time watching any of my videos, and if it is, welcome. But yeah, I keep this in my humid, hot bathroom. It's not hot, but it's warm, moist. It likes that. It thrives off moisture. So, and this relationship of water will give you a clue about its needs and its care, right? So it needs a place where there's constant or high humidity. It needs to be warm. It likes partial shade. Mine sits in an east-facing window, and it gets gentle morning light. But indeed, throughout the summer, when the sun becomes more powerful, I do have crisps, and sometimes I've had burn on this plant. Like there's a crisp in here right now, but there's other reasons why your plant might have crisp, and I'll get to that. But yeah, so it really needs those conditions. In terms of watering this plant, like, you want to make sure the soil is consistently moist, and I've covered this in another video, but you stick your best tool you have, by the way, you stick that finger down in the pot. If your finger comes up with barely any soil on it, it is needing water because it's too dry. You can see there's a little bit of soil on my fingers, but it is quite dry, so I'm actually gonna give this a little bit of water. Like, this is the kind of fern, if you're keeping it, you're interested in keeping this in your house, you need to be checking this puppy out every day. right now it is the spring of the year. Weather is very mixed here in Newfoundland. We'll have dry times, we'll have, you know, humid times. So you want to be checking because your plant might be drying out more on some days than others, and you want to water this fern every other day. Sometimes, depending on the weather, depending on the conditions, like of the climate you're in, you want to water this every day. Sometimes, depending. I don't want to like have anybody having soggy soil because that's not what I'm saying. So you want to always avoid soggy soil. That's not okay for most plants, I should say. But you know, and soggy soil would be like I've said before. You stick your finger down in the soil, and no soil comes off on your finger, but your finger is like super wet. It's not dry; it's super wet, and no soil is sticking to it because your finger is too soggy to stick to your finger. So that's sog, and not many plants like that. Of course, there's hydroponic plants, but you know, and this loves water, but it's just not the right condition. That's too much water in the soil for this plant. But given like, you know, depending on what the climate is like, or the weather, I should say, you know, you might have to water this plant more often one week than another. It's a little bit high maintenance. You gotta be ready for this plant, right? Like it's gorgeous. It's one of my absolute favorite houseplants of all time that I've grown, but like it's a bit of a diva. It's a bit of a diva. I haven't got a name for her. What do you think I should call her? She's a little bit of a diva. So I'm back, and I was just with my friend who dropped by, and I had some plant goods for her, and she picked them up, and it was really nice to see her face. And I got a plant off her. Because she works over at the Treasure Trove. So her name is Caitlin, to be open. And she works at the Treasure Trove over in a town in Newfoundland called Dildo. We got a town called Dildo. And it's actually quite an interesting town. It's so beautiful. So you should check that town out. Jimmy Kimmel has, just to let you know. Or is it Fallon? No, it's Fallon, Jimmy Fallon. Sorry. So anyway, she lives there and works there, and so they get plants in from Faith Greenhouses, and so they had a shipment, and I saw that there was a chenille plant, and I was like, oh, I'm looking for you. So of course I got her to nab me one, paid for it, and she just dropped it off to me. So I'm like super excited. I have to size that plant up hardcore pretty soon. Anyway, I don't know where I was at. All I know is that I was like really enjoying playing with my plant, going like this, making a hat out of it. So I had to do it again. It's just awesome. I would love to have this hair, like, you know, long time ago when I had more hair. Long story, I'll get into it another time. Did you know I used to have very bushy curly hair? Anyway, so but I like to play with my plants, and I think everybody should, because that makes life awesome. So okay, I don't want to ruin things here. So I'm just going to pick a place where I was. That's it. I know I was talking about conditions, and so I think I was talking about at one point in this video that there could be reasons as to why the plant will crisp more than if it's getting too much bright light. Again, you want to put this plant in east light, I think is, or even northeast is a little bit, you know, more conducive to the plant, or just in a shady spot in your home, no matter what the light exposure is, just in a shady, partial shade to shade environment. So mine does get a little bit too much eastern light, like I told you, at times, and it does get a little crisp, and so you can see that crisp. I don't know if you can see it in this. Yeah, I don't know if you can, but it's there. Okay. The fact that I have to work pretty hard to show you the crisp makes me feel happy. Anyway, but this plant will crisp if it doesn't get enough water as well. It will crisp. It will crisp if it doesn't have enough humidity. So those are two other reasons why your plant will crisp. So it sounds like a very complex plant, but I've worked it out where I'll never move this plant out of my bathroom. Not this plant, because it thrives in there and it's happy, and like it's yeah, like why would I move it, right? I don't have the same humidity. It's not as warm and sunny, and even though it doesn't need that much sun, but it's not as warm and humid in any other room in my home. And it looks good in my bathroom. So I really do think it's a bathroom plant. I can share a little bit more about, you know, how you can use this plant with design to, you know, maximize the places that you can put in your home. Propagation. So like most ferns, you know, you can, the easiest way to propagate is to divide. So to divide a fern, I'll do it on one video, I'm sure sometime, is you take it all into the pot, you get a clean, sterile knife, and you cut the plant into sections that you want to make, you know, the size that you would like to make, and you want to include a few fronds. These are fronds, by the way, not stems, although I did refer to something as a stem. But, and because you want to make sure you have a few fronds to make your plant successful in its propagation. So, yeah. That's what you do to propagate. There are spores on this plant, so it leads me to believe that you could propagate this through spore propagation. I think that's a little bit much. You know, I would recommend just dividing the plant. Another thing I would like to mention is that this plant has defoliated on me before, but I don't know if it was because I didn't give it enough water and I kind of like let it go. And I just accepted what I thought to be its fate, which was death, but it was not dead. It came back. So like it is delicate, but it's also hardy that way. And I have heard people say that their maidenhairs will defoliate in the wintertime, which is when that happened for me. But like I said, it's hard to know in my experience because I did just let it go. I let it go. Terrible. But I won't be doing that this year. So my plant mostly defoliated. It didn't entirely defoliate, but it came back in around March when we started to get more sun. And it grew and grew so much within a month. It was so crazy. I will put a picture up to illustrate that. So you can see just how fast this plant can take off. Fertilizing. You don't really need to fertilize a fern. Maybe some people are interested in that, but like, you know, my plants I've had a few plants now for, you know, about 3 years in this home, and I'm getting my plants to be big, which is wonderful, but I'm having, you know, issues with space because I have so many now big plants. Not all of them are big. I'm not trying to flex too hard or anything. I'm just like having them for a while and they grow, right? And they take care of them and they grow, which is what happens. But, you know, I'm not interested in fertilizing my maidenhair. Yeah. Oh, and I miss the soil, like, conditions. So it loves moisture, but it needs very well draining soil. So for this plant, I have Pro Mix, I think. Regular soil plus a lot of perlite. I'd say about a quarter or a third, and then the same amount, I'd say a third of orchid bark, just to keep it super draining, because the plant that requires so much water is going to appreciate a lot of drainage. So there's a lot of information. I didn't think there was going to be that much information. Now, if you've been sort of eyeing this guy up and you're like, you know, you've been talking all about your other fern. Oh, I remember what I had the plant on my head. What I was saying when I had the plant on my head. I was saying, hey, I'd like to have a name for my diva plant. And I just didn't have it. Now, there's two names that are rolling around in my mind. One is, and I love these women, but, you know, diva. One is Bae. One is Madonna. I guess I have more than two. And the other one is Mariah. Like, you know, just two super divas. I don't know. Look, this feels really nice. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I really appreciate that, because, you know, when my plants start to get a little bit epic and I feel like I've, you know, invested, you know, a lot of my time and energy, I start to sort of have a different relationship with them. So when they get big, I kind of want to name them, right? It's not that they don't deserve a name before, but like, I just don't know how long we're going to be together. So, and you know, time, you know, quality time grows a relationship of any kind. So I guess by the time your plant gets big, it has you've had a lot of quality time with that plant. Anyway, I'm going to stop yapping about that. But I'd like to know what your suggestions are for diva names. So this is another maidenhair fern. Oh, I like it. It's like a little mustachio. Oh, and this is a maidenhair rosy fern. You wouldn't know that right now, but because it doesn't have the burgundy, winey kind of tint that it did when I first got it. And I'm kind of upset about that, but like, this is a very new plant for me. It's only about a month old, if that. So, you know, I'm learning about this plant. The leaves are definitely different than this maidenhair plant. If you notice, maybe I'll have to take a picture to really show that, but I'm gonna just bring this forward. So if you look, these little leaves are very lacy. And they're like little spots, right? Oh God, they're so gorgeous. So gorgeous. Look at that. So pretty. And this one, just as pretty, is kind of, you know, they're like the leaves on, like the fronds are just sort of like, they're a little longer. They're still quite delicate when they're new, but the older ones are a little tougher. I dare say I will not compare this to Boston fern fronds, but they get a little tougher as they age, which is very interesting to me. But the new ones are super delicate, and they have a different shape. They're a little bit more elongated. Yeah, they're super sweet. The stems are still black, so they still have that feature, that wiry feature. Anyway, I'm wondering, I've got like an intuition going on that this plant needs a bit more shade to have the burgundy rosy quality to this plant. So I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna experiment, which means I might need to take it out of the bathroom a little bit. I don't know, but because I'm terrified to have a maidenhair outside the bathroom. I'm terrified. Anyway, so, but isn't it sweet? Isn't it sweet? And it's just so gorgeous. So, going back to my plants, I'm gonna take this little plant out. This is a little Bonnie spider plant. It's so sweet. I just want to put it right there. Yes, so the design aspect. So remember in the video when I was referring to the fact that it's tough to have maidenhairs outside of the bathroom just due to their needs, their conditions that they need. So you could also, for design, put these as a smaller plant, obviously, in a cloche, like an enclosure, and so that's kind of like a closed terrarium look in a cloche like that. And you can put other moisture loving ferns that could thrive in there, or even like I think it's the Norfolk Pilia. I think it's the friendship plant it's called. I could have totally said the name wrong there, but I know that that's a plant that would enjoy being in a closed terrarium. So I'm by no means an expert on that, so I won't get more into that, but you could put them in a cloche, and you could take your little fern, your maidenhair, like almost anywhere in your home. Of course, you want to look more into those types of setups because you have to watch your lighting. Glass will magnify the sunlight, and then you want to avoid burning your plants in the cloche. but that's a perfect way. And I actually would love to do that at some point, to make a closed terrarium, because I really do like the this aspect of the maidenhair ferns, being that they're very woodland looking. They've got a very different vibe, and it's a vibe that is very, I think, my vibe. I have a dirty secret. I do own tropical plants, but I am really, it's not my cup of tea. I'm not a huge tropical plant lover, in the sense that like I have tropical plants, but I try to keep them like less tropical, pick the less tropical looking ones, if that makes any sense, except for like my Monstera deliciosa, which is obviously very a tropical looking plant. But I am just not partial to really tropical look in the home. I love the tropics. I've been to the tropics. I was in Tahiti. I miss you, Tahiti. And Bora Bora and places like that, you know, for our honeymoon, trip of a lifetime. But I'm a bit more of a woodland kind of gal, a bit more of a bohemian kind of looking gal for my plants. So I really like ferns, obviously, because they have a super woodland vibe, and stuff like ficus. I mean, they're tropical, but they're a little bit more tree looking. So anyway, and that's why I think I'm a bit sparse on my color in my plants, with the exception of some variegation and a couple of pops of color here and there. But yeah, dirty little secret about me. And sometimes I think to myself, like, oh, that's not a very popular opinion. I shouldn't, you know, gravitate towards that. But, you know, that's just it. That's just how I am. And I do like this woodland vibe. So you can take that with this plant anywhere in your home, in a cloche. You know, you can also try your maidenhair by your kitchen sink. It depends on, you know, what light you're getting in that kitchen. My kitchen might be a candidate, to be honest, because it is like northwest facing. So, and the plants do not get very strong light at all. So maybe it's something I might try. I would try it a little bit more with this rosy maidenhair, because it does seem to have tougher foliage, which again, your plants, the way they appear, their features will give you clues about their care and their needs. So, you know, this one does seem a little bit hardier than this standard maidenhair fern. And just another thing on design, another thing that, you know, the maidenhair can provide is just contrast. Like, in terms of design, in terms of art, I really like contrast. Like, I can see this plant looking fabulous against a black wall or a dark charcoal kind of looking wall. Its bright green and black look fantastic together, and it has, you know, those black stems on the fronds there, or against, like, you know, white. You know, my maidenhairs are not next to white walls, or not next to black walls, or in my yellow bathroom. It's still beautiful, it's still a lovely contrast, but I really think that this would be stunning in more of a monochromatic type of room with its severe black stems. They're very stark. It's very stark. And just like with that contrast of very delicate lacy leaves and stark black stems, just like, that's just like a lesson, a study, an etude on like contrast. You know, plants are just such sources of inspiration for art in my mind. And so, yeah, and you know, they provide such texture, so that's another design element about maidenhair. And so picture your maidenhair next to a snake plant, like that contrasting type of element that the lacy, fluffy, ethereal looking maidenhair would give next to a like sharp, statuesque looking plant like the snake plant. Yeah, so just sort of like mixing up your textures. This is a fantastic, a feature, a design feature is its texture. It provides so much texture. And so if you've got like a pretty plain kind of home, you know, you're going to get that texture, right, with these plants. And maybe you're really into texture and you just want to bring in all the textures. Well, then this would add, right? to that kind of look. I also think this plant would look fabulous against, you know, a little bit of a busy wallpaper, right? Like just really add, you know, to a wallpaper. I think the look, I just picture it against like, I don't know, like orangey kind of like floral with kind of like small print kind of wallpaper. I think it'd just be fabulous. And it could be just, you know, speaking and saying stuff that's not necessary right now, but like I just really, I hope people, you know, like chatting about design with plants, because, you know, we have them in our house to add oomph, right? So yeah, and I just think that those are some just design things about this plant that speak to me, right? And this is all about just your own personal experience and preferences. And someone might think that something I say is just kind of weird, but that's okay, right? Yeah, so I just want to share some thoughts that roll around in my head. And yeah, and so I think that that's it. So I do have plans for more fern videos. I think I'm going to do 2 more. So, yeah, now I have more ferns than 2 different varieties, but I'm just going to combine a few ferns for my next one, I think. And then the one after that, I'm just going to focus on 1 fern. And I think that's going to conclude the fern series, the Fern Friday series, that sometimes get posted on Saturday. So, yeah. And I just want to end with a gigantic thank you, gratitude for everybody that, you know, watches my channel and contributes to this little plant community that we've got going on here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and anywhere else, of course, the larger macro plant community. You know, and thank you for liking my videos, for watching them. All your subscriptions are greatly appreciated. My plant channel is growing and I want to see it grow. Share my videos if you wouldn't mind, if you feel like it. Of course, no obligations, but you know, spread the love, right? This channel, I hope, is going to be all about positivity and connection, and support and contributing, right? I just really, really believe in being a contributor. You don't all have to be the head honcho or the go-to person, the guru. I really believe that, you know, more minds put together is better than the one. So, and I really, you know, love learning from people. And that's what I want to make this channel about, you know, and a place to have a cuppa. Hot chocolate's fabulous. So, yeah, with that, I guess I'm going to say thanks, and I'll see you in my next video.